Ahura Mazda and Ahriman. We're not like the Majus. We're not like the dualists who believe in two opposing gods. No. We believe in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, khayrihi wa sharrihi, hulwihi wa murrihi. It's good and it's bad. It's abundance and it's want. It's sweetness and it's bitterness. And shaitan is from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why our tawheed is so essential to understanding this situation. Now, you have some other unseen factors there. You have the angelic realm, which is it's part of the realm of guidance, there is an element that is related to revelation, but you have an angelic realm. In this room there are angels. These are real entities. They exist. This is not imagination. It is not mythology. They are real and they are present and with us. We have guardian angels, al-hafadha. We have a guardian angel before us and behind us, according to the Quran. We have an angel on the right and on the left. One is responsible for writing the hasanat and the other is responsible for writing the sayyat, the good and the bad. And the one who writes the bad is under the charge of the one who writes the good. He cannot write the good until he takes permission. He cannot write the bad until he takes permission. And the angel who writes the good tells him to wait to see if the man makes tawbah during a certain period of time. So this is real. There are khawatir malakiyah. There are angelic inspirations that come to the human being. Just as there are khawatir shaitaniyah, nafsiyah, from the nafs, from shaitan. There are also suggestions that come from the angelic realm, and these are having an influence on the human being. And depending on the purity of the human being, is the greater the influence is. The more pure an individual comes, the more strong the angelic influence is on that individual. And it moves into the realm of hifz. Not the isma, because the isma is for the prophets alone. They have impeccability, they cannot fall into error, but there is a type of protection as an individual moves higher and higher into that realm of purity of the self. Now, if you move, and I could go, but the time is limited, if you move to, you can go into nafs, hawa, dunya, shaitan, the enemies of the human being. But I want to go a little bit into the material world now. Looking at we have to understand that that's there, and it's important because we're not materialists. You see, the materialists, if you read Montgomery Watts, who's a Christian, he should know better, but he doesn't. Montgomery Watts, in a book he wrote on Spain, he says, and when these Muslim hordes came over, he might not use that word, but when these Muslims came over, their main goal, and I'm paraphrasing, their main goal was conquest. You see, and they wanted booty. Now, were you there, Mr. Watts? No, seriously. Did you know the intentions of all of those people? Or are you simply making an analogy of the people that you know? Or maybe your own self? Do you see? This is how the materialist interprets it. And the munafiq is similar to that. When Abu Dhar al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu and Abdurrahman bin Auf brought in, one brought gold for the ghazwa and the other brought dates. The munafiqun said, Abdurrahman yura'i, he wants to show off. And they said about Abu Dhar, he wants to be mentioned. This is a disease in the heart. You see, in other words, they are projecting their own diseased hearts onto pure human beings whose intentions were Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. They were not diseased people. By the shahada of the Prophet himself sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they were not diseased. But they are being considered as having these ulterior motives, axes to grind, because those very people with those motives are projecting their own internal reality onto the internal reality of these other people, and it's not applicable. Because we do not have that. أُمِرْتُ أَنْ أَحْكُمْ بِالظَّوَاهِرِ, I was commanded to judge by the outward. أَشَقَّقْتَ عَنْ قَلْبِهِ, did you split open his heart and look into it? When Usama killed the man who said, La ilaha illallah. And he said, قَدْ نَافَقَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. He was doing it out of hypocrisy. أَشَقَقْتَ عَنْ قَلْبِهِ. Did you split open his heart and look into it? And in another riwayah, he kept repeating to him. And he said, La ilaha illallah. Until Usama said, I wish that I hadn't became a Muslim until that day. You see. And so this is how the Prophet ﷺ was teaching his people. That intentions are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's alone. Now we can see signs of a munafiq. You can see signs of a munafiq. You see. Allah has given us signs of hypocrites. They have signs. But to judge a person is a very dangerous thing to do. To judge their intentions. And this is what the materialist does. So we have to recognize these other forces, these other realities that the materialist will not look at, because he only knows the outward of this world. Now, when we move to the material, we have to keep the spiritual in mind. But when we move to the material, we also have two forces working, external and internal. In other words, the material, there are causes that I'm not relating to the unseen world, but I'm relating to the seen world, but there are signs and there are also symptoms. And the symptoms we do not know unless they are articulated by the very people that are involved in the matter. So we do not know. Now, in looking at the material, we have two important things to look at. One is kufr itself. And the Prophet ﷺ has said, Al-kufr millatun wahida. Kufr is one system. It is one millah. All of kufr is one millah. You have the Marxists, the atheists, the communists, the socialists, the national socialists, international socialists, the capitalists, the free market capitalists, the American anti-NAFTA, anti-GATT capitalists, all different types of capitalists, ultimately one phenomenon called kufr. It's all kufr. It goes under the rubric of kufr, but it has different permutations. And you can see syphilis, very interesting disease. One of the doyens of medicine in the 19th century said, no syphilis in all of its manifestations, and you've mastered 80% of pathology. Because syphilis is called the great mimicker. And syphilis can look like a lot of different diseases. And this is a syphilitic culture, right? Really, they had syphilis. They all, you know why they wear wigs, right? You see all these pictures of men in wigs. And what cultures had men wearing wigs? Their hair was all falling out. They had syphilis. Really. That's what happened. And then the scrofulas. You said they had syphilitic scrofula, so they started wearing these high collars. Very uncomfortable to hide the syphilis. It was a very common disease in Europe. I'm not exaggerating this. It still is. It's just all gone underground in this culture. They call it AIDS now. Right? I mean, AIDS if you look at AIDS and study AIDS, it looks exactly like syphilis in fast motion. Seriously. I mean, a physician will confirm that for me. They have AIDS dementia. The first thing, they break out in rashes. Right? And then later on they go into dementia, which is tertiary syphilis. And interesting to note that community that AIDS began first showing up in, the first signs of it, homosexual community, was a community constantly exposed to syphilis and rectal gonorrhea. In fact, you can see the statistics of public health in the Bay Area. It's very, very disgusting. It's all part of their culture. So you have the point I'm using about syphilis as a grotesque example, but syphilis mimics a lot of different things. It can look very different. It's still syphilis. And the same is true with what Nietzsche called syphilization, right? It looks very different, but